Hi, everyone, and welcome to this fireside chat for our LogMeIn products. I'm Chris Savio, Senior Director of Product Marketing here at GoTo for our LogMeIn suite. And today I'm joined by some of our experts on our security side and engineering side to talk about a very important topic, security and IT tools, and specifically zero trust, kind of cutting through the buzzword for it and getting to what does it mean? How does it work? Why is it important? And how are we approaching it? With our solutions as well. And so, as I said, I'm joined today by Attila Taruk, our Chief Information Security Officer, our CISO, and David Bistroy, our VP of Engineering for our LogMeIn products as well. Gentlemen, welcome to this discussion. Nice to have you here. All right, so let's start high level here. So Attila, I'm going to kind of kick it off with you and really want to just kind of lay the foundation here and start with kind of the current reality, right? So we've seen headlines about supply chain attacks, ransomware issues, and they're continuing to grow. They're continuing to get more sophisticated, right? Um, from your perspective, right, how has this kind of landscape changed over these recent years, right? What impact is it having on IT leaders, IT professionals, IT teams, security leaders, and just businesses today, beyond maybe just financial burdens, but kind of at a broader level?
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks, Chris, for the question. I mean, let's first talk a little bit about the transformation of ransomware. Like ransomware used to be this: your screen goes black, and there's a countdown, and you have to enter decryption codes in order to get your data back. Well, that still exists, but the ransomware has shifted from simple encryption schemes to multi-stage campaigns involving most of the time data exfiltration, so double extortion. So they're not just only encrypting your data, but exfiltrating. So even if you get the decryption back, well, they can double extort you, saying that, oh, by the way, we also exfiltrated your data, so we want you to pay for that as well. And there's even encryptionless extortion when attackers just steal data and threaten to leak that sensitive data without locking systems. So it's really interesting to see like how the landscape have shifted there. And then supply chain attacks is definitely on the surge, because there are no companies today that are doing business alone on their own, right? Like everybody is dependent on third parties, fourth parties, fifth parties, if you will. So attackers increasingly exploit trust relationships with vendors, and even more so with open source ecosystems, right? So like creating these cascading disruptions across industries, and these attacks often cause like weeks long operational halts. Of course, either a ransomware attack or a supply chain surge can have a big operational disruption, a serious systematic downtime. Like you can access your systems, or even if you can, you want to come through that and see if the attackers are still there. Of course, that means a huge drain on resources and IT teams, right? And not to mention the regulatory and compliance pressure, right? Like it's like these rising breach severities like really drives like regulatory pressure and fines as well. And then of course, we haven't even mentioned the reputational risk there. So it's a really big issue today.
Maybe help us out here, Attila. Can you kind of cut through the noise a little? What does it actually mean, right? What does zero trust means in practical terms? What's kind of the core principles of zero trust? And forget about the marketing jargon for it.
Yeah, definitely. And the simplest explanation. So, first of all, like zero trust is a mindset. It's not a SKU. It's not a product that you buy and plug it in. You can achieve zero trust through different products, but it's really a mindset. It's not a single technology. It's really a philosophy and architecture built on the assumption that there are no users, device, or workload, if we talk about the cloud, should be trusted by default. So that's what zero trust means. Like, yeah, you don't trust anybody in even inside your network, and it really shifts from perimeter based security to continuous verification and least privilege across your whole across identities, across devices, applications, and data. Like that's maybe the simplest definition I can
Yeah,
give.
100%. Yeah, right, exactly. That's it as its core. And I think, David, you and I have had many conversations on this, right? And as a principle or concept, anything else to add to how you would define zero trust or explain it to someone?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I can just second what Attila said. It's 100% true. But during the discussion with many clients, this topic always arise. At its core, zero trust simply what we also saying from mindset perspective. They don't trust, always verify. So that's what we're trying to underscore. And but there are challenges because Attila said that you can achieve it in multiple tools. That's true. But today, different vendors cause very different things, zero trust. Everyone tries to strengthen one part of their system, but at the same time, they hide their weak spots. And that can cause some confusion because when all of these small gaps across many systems adds up, then that's when real vulnerability appear. So zero trust is about closing these chains. So verifying every step, every connection, every time. So basically, this is what we're trying to underscore. And what we always emphasize when we mentioning it to the customer that our transparency. So why and how we are zero trust. So we honest about the fact that zero trust is a journey, not just a switch. So we truly believe that one of the most important things is to ensure that the core IT supply chain, mostly the RMM platforms, and remote access solutions are zero trust by design. So that's really important thing what we want to underscore. But in that case of any incident, customers can be confident that their primary supply chain remains unsecure, and that's why we want to make sure that everything what we providing is underscored from zero trust perspective. So transparency is important, but everyone needs to understand it's not just a switch.
Can you talk to me a little bit about like how these tools, if not secured correctly, can be abused, can provide for penetration points or lateral movement for malicious actors, David?
Let me start because that's my favorite topic. So and that's just a very good question, and honestly, it goes right to the heart of why we built the entire zero trust architecture around Resolve, because the RMM tools are incredible powerful. They are designed so that an IT admin can reach the entire device fleet within a single click. That's great when you need to fix an issue quickly and roll out hot fixes across thousands of endpoints in a second, but the same power is exactly what makes the situation super tricky. Because it's going to be so attractive to the attackers as well. Think about it. If you can push legitimate patches to few seconds, to few thousand machine instantly, malicious actor can just push out ransomware as easily as a hotfix. And that's the real paradigm shift we see in the industry. The same tool that make life easier for IT teams also make life easier for the bad actors. A perfect example, by the way, was the Kaseya supply chain attack back in July 2021. Hackers from Rebel ransomware group exploited zero-day vulnerability on their RMM platform, and which they used basically which was used by many service providers all over the world. So that caused a lot of problems. Through that trusted software channel, they managed to push malicious updates and encrypt thousands of systems almost simultaneously. Around 1,500 organizations were impacted. And basically, it just showed for everyone how dangerous it can be a single centralized IT management tool if it's compromised. So that was a eye-opening moment for us, and that's exactly why. And when we designed Resolve, we made sure every command and every action is individually verified, cryptographically signed, and never automatically trusted. So that's the kind of large scale to make sure that kind of large scale abuse never ever can happen.
And so to your point, We did build Resolve when it launched in 2022. We did have, we were having discussions then, right? And when all this stuff was happening with those attacks of like, okay, well, we don't want this to happen to our customers. We want to help. We have some level of responsibility to them to try and lock down our technology. And so we built it with the zero trust principles, this architecture from the ground up. So kind of help explain that in layman's terms, because I know when I'm talking about it, when we have some of our account executive talking to prospects or customers trying to explain it, can you explain like what makes our zero trust access different from traditional remote access solutions, that protects people against these kind of threats that you mentioned?
Absolutely, absolutely. Really the answer to this question, we need to use our cybersecurity mindset as well. But let me explain this simple analogy, what I really like to use. Think of a big safe in a bank. In a traditional system, attackers dig a tunnel to get there. And once they break in, they find the real treasure, the endpoints. That's basically the endpoints for the RMM terminology. That's what they want, because when they are in, they can control everything. The backend talks to the device trusts it, and they just execute whatever command they get. So now in our zero trust architecture, things works differently. We actually start from the assumption that someday someone might find the tunnel to our safe as well. But when they get there, what do they see? They won't find the treasure. They will find thousands of small lockers, and each one can only be opened with signature keys that lives in a customer hands, not ours. So even if someone reached the safe, they couldn't open anything. The key aren't inside the system. They are with the customers. So that makes it virtually impossible to hack everyone's device. It's not enough to dig the tunnel, which, by the way, we make very, very hard every time to make it possible. And they also have to steal every single customer key if they want to do anything bad, because it's not going to be valid there. So that's why we're saying that if those keys who have still valid by the time they reach the data center, it has to be valid as well. So that's also really important, that you not just have to steal the key from the customers, but those key has to be also valid by the time when you reach the data center. So that's why we also explaining it in a way that if you want a 99% security, we can say 100% because Attila is keeping us honest here, but just our system rotate your signature key as often as you can, and it's gonna be mission impossible for the bad guys.
I want to wrap up here, and I'm going to turn it back over to you, Attila, from a security perspective, right? So we talked about the technology, remote access, but let's say, for companies big and small, zero trust from a principle, from a core mindset, should be attainable for everyone, right? Regardless of your size, you should always assume, malicious actors are being nondescript about who they're going after. They're blasting things after to big and small organizations, right? So what's maybe one piece of actionable advice or practical steps that you would give to a security leader, IT leader, to start tomorrow, to kind of maybe get on a journey to being better secured and adopting kind of zero trust principles or policies?
There are no silver bullets here. It's really the same way you start, consume an elephant, right? Like you one bite at a time, right? So you gotta start small and scale smart. If we walk through the core principles of zero trust, starting with assume breach, like you need to design your system as if attackers are already inside. What David is mentioning is, imagining that somebody is already in your network. So how can you prevent them to get access to your endpoints and make it close to impossible or even impossible for them to get there? So what is that level of segmentation that you can implement? As we said earlier, never trust, always verify. Like that's all. Every access request must be authenticated and authorized, such as with a separate encryption key or based on multiple signals. And the least privilege access, it's again going back to like you should have access to what you need, and ideally for the time when you need it, so not forever. And then it's all about, strong identity. You can start as easy as making sure you have MFA enabled everywhere, because it all starts with identity. And then lastly, the continuous monitoring piece. Like, that's why you want something like maybe on RMM in your network, where you can continuously monitor and log what's happening in your network. So it's not easy, but if you can touch on all of those principles and start doing something, you can finally get there. But more importantly, zero trust, as we said, it's not a single product. It's not just technology, I should say. It's a consistent enforcement and cultural adoption. Like, your employees, your people have also understand that, yeah, we're doing this not to screw with you, but to make sure that if somebody, or when somebody gets in, they won't be able to hurt us or destroy our company.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. And it really is, right? It's a combination of, you can have the best technology out there and tools that are secure, but if you don't have them set up right, you're at risk, or vice versa, right? You could have all the permissions and things in place, but if your tool isn't going to be able to execute on those and, have a trusted vendor that's protecting you from their side as well, you're at risk. So encourage everyone, to think about, look through your tool set. Security, very important. Need to be looking at today is stay one step ahead with a lot of the advances that are going on. So gentlemen, Attila, David, I really appreciate you both coming on for this quick conversation. If anyone's interested in learning more about LogMeIn Resolve's Zero Trust approach, please feel free to contact us. Our great solution consultants team can walk you through it. You can take a demo and see all the other great functionality that exists within Resolve to manage all of your endpoints. So thank you both again, and have a great day, everyone.